The day I discovered the truth about the man my daughter was seeing, I realized betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes, it comes wearing the face you thought you'd left safely in your past. Before I continue, let me say this. If you're listening right now, and you've ever had life grab you by the throat at the exact moment you thought you were finally getting things under control, then you're in the right place. This is Voice of Mrs. Addison, where we tell real stories, our stories, the kind that leave you thinking long after the video ends. So before we dive deep, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and turn on your notifications, because the story I'm about to share is one I never thought I'd speak about out loud. But here I am. I still remember the morning everything began to shift. It was a Wednesday, one of those quiet, blue sky mornings where the house felt unusually still. I'd woken up early, the way I usually do, resting my feet on the cold wooden floor beside my bed. I remember the faint smell of last night's lavender candles still lingering in the hallway as I walked toward the kitchen. My daughter, Talia, had moved back home 6 months earlier after finishing her degree. She was 22, grown enough to make her own choices, but still young enough that a mother's worry never really stops. Anyone who has raised a daughter knows that feeling, that constant mixture of pride and fear living in your chest at the same time. Our apartment in Baltimore wasn't fancy, but it was warm, lived in. The kind of home where the kettle is always on the stove and somebody's blanket is always draped over the couch no matter how many times I fold it. That morning, sunlight came through the blinds in thin, golden lines. The refrigerator hummed softly, and the clock above it ticked in that steady, comforting rhythm it had kept for almost 10 years. I made myself a cup of ginger tea and toasted some leftover cornbread from the night before. I remember spreading butter on it slowly, watching it melt around the edges. I kept thinking about how quiet the house was. Too quiet. Talia wasn't usually an early riser, but she also wasn't the type to disappear without a trace. She'd been coming home late for weeks, later than usual. Sometimes with her makeup still fresh, sometimes with that soft glow a woman gets when she's keeping a secret. I noticed it, of course. Mothers always notice. But I told myself it was harmless. Maybe she finally had a boyfriend. Maybe she finally felt free again after the stress of college and graduation. I didn't want to smother her. Maybe that was my first mistake. I was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through emails, when my phone buzzed with a message from my friend Gloria. Gloria. Girl, you coming in to cover for me today or nah? My back is killing me. Gloria and I both worked part-time at a nearby community center, mostly helping seniors with paperwork, benefits, and appointments. I'd promised I'd fill in for her that day. So I finished my cornbread, rinsed my mug, and grabbed my sweater from the coat rack. Before I stepped out, I poked my head into Talia's room. Her bed was made. Completely made. Too made. The kind of maid that said she hadn't slept in it. For a second, I felt a pinch in my chest. But I swallowed it. She's grown, I whispered to myself, turning off her lamp. She'll text. I locked up and headed to work. The community center was its usual rhythm of slow-moving mornings. Mr. Clarence arguing about his prescription copays, Ms. Jewel asking me to help her reset her password for the 6th time this month, the smell of burnt coffee lingering from the staff room. There's something humbling about working around elders. Their stories have weight. Their eyes have decades behind them. Whenever life got too noisy, being there grounded me. Around noon, I took a short break and stepped outside for some fresh air. I was sipping from a small bottle of water when I finally checked my phone again. Still no message from Talia. Not even a "good morning, Ma." Not even a little heart emoji, like she used to send when she was running late or out with friends. Something in me tightened. But once again, I brushed it aside. I told myself not to be dramatic. I finished my shift early and headed home. By the time I walked through the front door, the sun had begun to set. The apartment carried that evening heaviness, the kind where shadows stretch long across the floor and every sound feels louder than normal. Talia still wasn't home. What bothered me wasn't the absence. It was the silence. No text. No missed call. Nothing. I reheated some leftover jollof rice and grilled chicken, ate a few bites, Push the rest away. My appetite was gone. I kept glancing at the front door like it would magically open. My mind drifted to the last conversation we had, 2 nights before. She had come home smiling, humming some slow R&B song, tossing her purse over the couch carelessly. She looked happy.
Grown.
Confident in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. "Ma, do you ever think about starting fresh?" she'd asked suddenly, sitting beside me. Starting fresh how? I turned to her, needing clarity. She'd shrugged with that little half-smile. Like letting go of old dreams. Making new ones. New beginnings. At the time, I assumed she was talking about a new job or some project she was working on. But now, replaying it in my mind, her words carried a different weight. A hidden edge. I didn't know it then, but she was already tangled up in something bigger than both of us. That night, I left the hallway light on and sat on the couch, waiting for her. Hours passed. My back grew stiff. My eyes burned, but I stayed awake. At 12:47 a.m., a time so specific it remains burned into my memory, the doorknob finally turned. The door opened slowly, and my daughter tiptoed in like a woman who was trying very hard not to be heard. Her hair was slightly messy, her lipstick faded, and the collar of her blouse wrinkled in a way that told a story without words. I sat up. "Talia," I said quietly. She froze. Her eyes widened, like a child caught stealing cookies from the jar. But she didn't look guilty. She looked scared. "Ma, you're still awake?" I studied her face. I could smell a faint scent on her, something musky, warm, expensive. Not hers. "Talia," I repeated, my voice steady. "Where have you been?" Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. She looked away, then back at me. And that was the moment, the very first moment, I felt the shift in the air. The first clue that something was coming. Something big. Something dangerous. Something I wasn't ready for. "Talia," I said again, softer this time. "Where have you been?" She took a shaky breath, slipped off her shoes, and placed them neatly by the door. That was the first odd thing. Talia was never neat at midnight. When she was flustered, she always kicked her shoes off wherever they landed. But tonight she was careful. Too careful. Like she didn't want to leave any trace behind. "I was out with friends," she murmured. Her voice wavered just a bit. Not enough for someone who didn't know her. But a mother hears the truth in the tremble. "At almost 1 a.m.? I asked gently. She shrugged, avoiding my eyes. We lost track of time. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to tell myself that 22-year-olds stay out late, and it doesn't mean anything, but something in my spirit felt unsettled, like a chair pulled back just an inch too far, waiting for somebody to fall. "Which friends?" I asked. She hesitated.
Talia.
"Ma, can we not do this tonight? I'm tired." She brushed past me, heading toward her bedroom. Normally, I let things slide. I've never been a loud, confrontational mother. But something in her manner, fear mixed with guilt, made me stand up. "Talia, stop." She froze mid-step. Slowly, she turned back to me. Her eyes glistened. Not with tears, but with a hidden emotion. Something close to dread. Her hair shifted over her shoulder as she forced a small smile. "Ma, please. I'm grown." "I know you are," I whispered. "But you didn't come home. You didn't text. And you look different." She flinched ever so slightly. Different how? I didn't want to embarrass her. I didn't want to say the scent on her wasn't perfume. A mother knows the difference between perfume and someone else's cologne. I didn't want to point out the smudged lipstick or the faint red mark on her collarbone that she thought her hair covered. I raised my chin slowly. "You look like you've been with someone." Her breath caught. "Ma, just tell me the truth." A long pause stretched between us. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside. The house felt too small for this moment. But then she did something that shook me. She smiled. A soft, secret smile. "Ma, I'm seeing someone," she said quietly. My stomach tightened. "Okay," I breathed, keeping my tone calm. "Who?" Her eyes darted downward. "I'll tell you soon. Talia." She folded her hands in front of her like a shy schoolgirl. Ma, it's new and complicated, but I promise, he makes me happy. Something about the word complicated made my pulse shift. Because in my experience, complicated rarely means good. It usually means forbidden. She stepped closer and kissed my cheek. Please just trust me. I'm figuring things out. Then she walked into her room before I could respond. I listened to the soft click of the latch, then the slow, weary rustle of her comforter as she climbed into bed. I sat on the couch again, staring into the dim hallway, feeling the aftershock of her confession pulsing in the silence. She's seeing someone. She didn't want to tell me who. And her whole body radiated the kind of nervous excitement people have when they're falling too fast. A part of me wanted to knock on her door and demand answers. But another part, the wiser part, knew that when a young woman tells you something is complicated, pushing her too hard will only make her lie better. So I let it go. But I didn't sleep. Not even for a minute. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. No goodbye. No note. No text. The apartment looked untouched, except for a faint scent of her coconut hair oil drifting from the hallway. I tried to distract myself, cleaned the kitchen, folded laundry, even rearranged my spice cabinet, but my mind kept circling back to her smile. That secret smile. By the time noon came around, I felt like my chest had been tightened with rope. I picked up my phone and dialed her. Straight to voicemail. Talia, just checking in. Call me. An hour passed. Nothing. I texted. Let me know you're okay. Still nothing. It wasn't until around 4 p.m. that she finally messaged. Talia, I'm good, Ma. Just busy. Love you. No explanation. No details. Just enough to stop me from panicking, but not enough to soothe me. I decided to drop it for now. 2 days later, the second clue arrived. I was at the grocery store, comparing prices on box cereal, when I saw Talia across the aisle. She didn't see me. She was standing near the produce section, her phone pressed to her ear, whispering into it. Not whispering like someone sharing a joke. Whispering like someone hiding. She laughed softly, this light, breathy laugh I'd never heard from her before. Yes, I miss you too, she murmured, turning her body away from people. Something in my stomach twisted. She kept talking in that same gentle, almost flustered tone. A woman in love. A woman nervous about being overheard. I moved a little closer, pretending to look at apples. No, I can't stay long, she whispered. You know why? Yes. I know. I know. I'll see you later tonight. Tonight. She hung up quickly when she noticed me approaching the aisle. Her eyes widened. Not in joy. Not even in surprise. In fear. Ma. Hey. I wasn't expecting to see you. I live 10 minutes away, Talia, I said calmly, picking up a bag of oranges. It's a grocery store, not Paris. She let out a nervous laugh. Yeah, true. She tried to sound casual, but her fingers kept fidgeting with the strap of her purse. Her shoulders were tense, raised just a little too high. You okay? I asked gently. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? I lifted an eyebrow. You tell me. She swallowed hard. Ma, I have to go. I'm meeting a friend. A friend? She nodded quickly. Too quickly. I'll text you later, she said, already backing away. That's when the third clue hit me like cold water. As she turned to leave, her phone lit up in her hand. I saw the name on the screen. Just 2 letters. J. She snatched her phone close to her chest as if I hadn't seen it. Bye, Ma, she said, rushing toward the exit. I watched her walk out, her steps fast, her posture anxious. J. 2 letters. 2 letters that meant nothing at that moment. But later, those letters would change everything. And they would break something inside me I didn't know could break again. I didn't go home right away after seeing Talia rush out of the grocery store. Instead, I stood there for a long moment, staring at the sliding glass doors closing behind her, feeling a slow, icy heaviness settle in my chest. J. The name pulsed in my mind like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. Not because I recognized it at the time, I didn't. Not because it felt suspicious, though it did. But because of the way she hid it. The way her whole body reacted when she realized I'd seen it. A mother knows when her child is afraid. And Talia was afraid. Not of me, but of the truth coming out. I paid for my groceries, drove home, and placed everything quietly on the kitchen counter. The house felt unnaturally still, the kind of silence that makes you aware of your own breathing. I poured myself a glass of cold water and sat at the table. I didn't want to be the kind of mother who snoops, who follows, who invades privacy. But something in my spirit was shifting, like a quiet alarm testing its volume before a real emergency. By the time the sun had set, I still hadn't heard a single word from Talia. Not a call. Not even a simple, "Got home safe." Around 9:30 p.m., she finally texted, "Talia, I'll be in late." Just that. No explanation. No reassurance. Just a statement, like she was informing a roommate, not her mother. I typed back, "Where are you?" The dots appeared for a second, then disappeared. No reply. That was when the truth settled in my bones. My daughter wasn't just dating. She was hiding. The following evening, my suspicion grew sharper. I'd gotten home from work and was putting leftovers in the fridge when I heard keys rattling at the door. I turned around as Talia walked in, her cheeks flushed and her hair slightly windblown. And again, that same warm, unfamiliar cologne lingered on her skin. A scent too mature for a 22-year-old boyfriend. "Hey, Ma," she said too cheerfully. She tried to walk toward her room, but I stepped slightly into her path. "Slow down, baby." My tone was gentle, but firm. "We haven't talked in 2 days. She blinked rapidly. "I've just been busy." "With who?" Her lips parted, then closed again. She shifted her purse from one shoulder to the other. "It's personal." "Talia, you're my daughter." Her eyes suddenly welled, but not with sorrow, with frustration. "Why can't you let me handle my life?" "Because I see you changing," I whispered. "And not in a way that brings peace." She looked away, chewing her lip. "We argue every time I come home," she muttered. "We argue because you're hiding." She sighed heavily and brushed past me. "Talia." "Ma, please. I don't want to talk about it." She disappeared into her room and closed the door. The quiet that followed felt like a wall between us. A wall neither of us had built intentionally, but somehow we kept adding bricks to it. I sat down on the edge of the couch and closed my eyes. Everything inside me felt twisted tight, like a rope pulled to its limit. I didn't want to push her away, but I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling growing inside me. Who was this Jay? Why was she so afraid for me to know? The next sign came unexpectedly. It was a Saturday morning. I woke up early, opened the curtains, and let fresh sunlight fill the living room. I brewed some mint tea and sat down to pay bills. Talia's door was closed. I assumed she was sleeping. Around 8:45, I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. I looked up, expecting her to walk into the kitchen. Instead, she was fully dressed, jeans, a fitted burgundy top, light makeup, hair styled neatly. Not casual. Not running errands clothes. Date clothes. My stomach sank. "You're up early?" I said. "Yeah," she replied, adjusting her gold hoop earrings. "I'm heading out." "Out where?" She avoided my eyes. "Just out." "Out with him." She froze. Her breath hitched so subtly that if I weren't her mother, I might have missed it. "Talia," I said softly. "Look at me." She hesitated, then reluctantly raised her gaze to mine. "What's his name?" Her jaw tightened. "Ma." "What's his name?" I repeated. She swallowed hard. "It's better if you don't know." Ice rippled through my chest. "Why?" "Because it'll just complicate things." "Is he married?" Her eyes flashed with panic. And that answered the question. She didn't have to say a word. Her silence screamed the truth. "Talia," I whispered, feeling my throat tighten. "Baby, please don't tell me you're seeing a married man." Tears filled her eyes instantly. "Ma, it's not like that." "Then how is it?" "He's getting a divorce soon." It's complicated." There it was again. That word. That dangerous word. I stood slowly from the couch. Talia, you're too young to let a man pull you into messy situations. Her chin trembled. He loves me. He loves having you, I corrected gently. That's different. She shook her head. You don't understand him. I don't need to understand him, I said calmly. I understand pain. And I see you walking straight toward it. She wiped her cheeks angrily. You're judging him. I'm protecting you. You don't know anything about him. Then tell me. She opened her mouth and shut it tightly. Because she couldn't. Because she knew she was defending something fragile, something wrong, something she didn't want to admit out loud. I have to go, she whispered. And before I could stop her, she rushed toward the door. But as she grabbed her purse, her phone slipped out, falling to the floor. The screen lit up on impact. A missed call. And the name flashed clear as day. J.A., 6 minutes ago. She snatched the phone quickly, but she knew I had seen it. Ma, I'm late. Talia, tell me his full name. She paused at the door. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. I can't. And she left. The door closing behind her felt like the beginning of something I wasn't ready for. Talia left the apartment so fast that her perfume still lingered in the air long after the door closed. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the empty space she'd just walked through, feeling a tightening in my chest I couldn't name. A mother knows when something is pulling her child away. A mother knows when danger is dressing itself up as love. But this felt worse. This felt like my daughter was drifting into a world where I couldn't reach her, where my voice no longer carried weight. I sat down slowly, pressing my palm against my forehead. Her words replayed in my mind like an echo. He's getting a divorce soon. It's complicated. You won't understand. I knew enough about married men to understand everything she wasn't saying. And the fact that she refused to tell me his name, that part cut deeper than anything else. She didn't come home that night. She didn't text. She didn't call. Just like that, my daughter, who once couldn't go to sleep without telling me where she was, had become a stranger living under my roof, slipping through my fingers like water. Around 11 p.m., I called her. Straight to voicemail. Again at midnight. Voicemail. At 1:15 a.m., she finally texted. Talia, I'm staying over at a friend's. Don't worry. A friend. I stared at that lie on my screen, feeling something inside me twist. The next morning, Sunday, I woke up early, hoping to catch her coming in, but her room was still empty. I made myself tea, sat by the window, and watched the churchgoers walking toward the chapel at the end of the street. Normally, Talia went with me. But now, even God felt like a stranger in her schedule. Around 9:30, I heard the door open. She tiptoed inside, moving quietly, like she didn't want to be heard. She looked exhausted. Eyes slightly puffy. Hair all over the place. Clothes wrinkled like she'd slept in them. Morning, she mumbled. Morning. I replied flatly. She avoided my gaze as she placed her purse on the counter. I'm going to shower, she said. Talia. She paused, her shoulders tensing. Sit. She turned slowly and lowered herself onto the couch. There was a time she would have leaned her head on my shoulder, but now she sat there stiff, like a guest in her own home. I rested my hands on my knees, trying to steady my breathing. You didn't come home last night, I said softly. I told you I was okay. That's not the point. She picked at a loose thread on her jeans. Are you spending nights with him? I asked gently. Her breath hitched, but she didn't deny it. Talia. She closed her eyes. Ma, please don't do this. I'm trying to help you. You're trying to control me. I'm trying to protect you. Her eyes flew open, full of something sharp and fragile. I'm an adult. Being grown doesn't stop consequences, I whispered. And it doesn't make a married man single, no matter how sweet his lies sound. She covered her face with her hands. He's not lying, she muttered through her palms. You don't understand. He's different. I leaned forward. Then tell me his name. Her hands dropped. No. The word landed heavy between us. Why are you so afraid for me to know? I asked softly. Her lips trembled. Because you'll judge me. I won't judge you, I murmured. But I will tell you the truth, even if it hurts. That's exactly why I can't tell you, Talia. No, Ma. She stood up abruptly. You always think you know better. You think people can't change. You think every man who made a mistake is evil. I blinked slowly. Did he tell you that? She hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything. That afternoon, she left the apartment again. Said she was going to run errands. But she left dressed beautifully. Too beautifully. A soft blue dress. Gold bangles. Her favorite nude heels. Not errand clothes. She walked out with the kind of glow women have when they're going to meet a man who makes them feel wanted, no matter how wrong the relationship is. I stood at the window and watched her get into a black car waiting outside. A black Lexus. New model. Tinted windows. I stepped closer to the glass. The driver stepped out, just a silhouette at first. Tall. Broad shoulders. Crisp shirt. He opened the passenger door for her. She slid inside. Then he went around, got behind the wheel, and the car drove off. I didn't see his face, but something about the way he carried himself, the confidence, the age in his posture, the polished way he dressed. This was no boy. This was a grown man. Someone established. Someone with a life already built. Someone with responsibilities. Someone's husband. 3 days passed before the next sign came. I was at the community center, attending a retirement celebration for one of my old co-workers, Mrs. Campbell. The kind of warm, potluck-style event where everybody wears their Sunday best and the food table is the main attraction. As I mingled with people, greeting old faces, laughter filling the room, I tried to distract myself from the storm brewing in my home. I was scooping fruit salad onto my plate when someone tapped my shoulder. I turned and saw Marianne, my former colleague. I hadn't seen her in nearly 4 years. Still the same, tall, elegant, always wearing a soft shade of lipstick. Marianne was one of those women who held herself together even on hard days. Her smile lit up. Is that Addison? Girl, look at you. Marianne. I laughed, hugging her. It's been ages. We pulled back, and she playfully fanned her face. Let me look at you. You don't age at all. Please, I said, waving her off. My knees say otherwise. She laughed and touched my arm warmly. I glanced down at her left hand. She still wore her wedding ring. Her gold band gleamed under the fluorescent lights, the diamond catching as she moved. I smiled politely. How's your husband doing? What's his name again? She beamed proudly. Joseph. Joseph Addison. A chill crawled through my body. My plate slipped slightly in my hand. My pulse kicked. Joseph. Addison. J. Oh, I whispered, my throat tightening. Marianne didn't notice my shift. She continued talking with that calm, glowing smile. Yes, Joseph's doing well. Busy, as always. You know that man can't sit still. Between his job and all his side projects, I barely see him on weekends. I couldn't breathe. My fingers trembled. She kept smiling, unaware. Then she added casually, but that's marriage for you. You take the chaos with the comfort. Her voice faded in my ears. Because in that moment, a truth colder than ice wrapped around my spine. My daughter was seeing someone's husband, but not just anyone. She was seeing Marianne's husband, my former coworker, a man I used to greet every Christmas at company dinners. Joseph Addison. He wasn't just a name now. He wasn't just an initial on her phone. He had a face. He had a wife, a family, and he had his hands on my daughter. My knees threatened to give way. And that was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that entire night. I lay on my back, staring at the faint cracks on my ceiling, the way streetlight leaked into the room and painted soft stripes across my blanket. My mind kept replaying everything. Marcus's hand on my daughter's arm, his wife's voice from years ago laughing in the break room, and my child's trembling shoulders in that living room. A part of me wanted to jump out of bed and march straight to his house. Another part wanted to sit beside Camille, hold her, and whisper that I would fix everything for her like She was still 5 years old. But she wasn't 5 anymore. She was 16. And I knew this was one of those moments that would carve something deep into both of us. Around 5 a.m., I finally got out of bed and made myself some chamomile tea. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost spilled the kettle. When the tea finished steeping, I held the mug close to my face, letting the steam warm the part of me that felt frozen. I sat at the dining table until I heard Camille's door open. Her footsteps were slow, like her body felt heavy with everything unsaid. She walked into the kitchen in her pajama shorts and a big t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun, her eyes red and swollen.
She froze when she saw me.
"Morning," I said quietly. She swallowed hard. "Morning."
Sit.
She did, but she didn't look at me, just stared at her hands. We sat in silence for what felt like a whole minute. Then I said gently, "Camille, I'm not here to scream. I'm not here to humiliate you. I just need you to answer me honestly." She nodded slowly. "Are you in love with him?" Her shoulders shook as she took a breath. I thought I was. And now? She finally looked up, tears gathering again.
"I don't know, Mama.
I don't know anything anymore." That honesty broke me in a different way. Because she wasn't some rebellious teenager trying to be grown. She was confused, hurt, emotionally manipulated by a man who knew better. I reached out and took her hand. "Baby, grown men like him, they don't date girls your age because the girls are special. They date them because the girls don't know how dangerous their charm is yet." She flinched at that word. Dangerous. "So, what happens now?" she whispered. I exhaled slowly. "Now, I need to protect you. And I need to make sure he never comes near you again." She wiped her face. Are you going to tell his wife?" I paused. Her wife. My former colleague. A woman I had once eaten lunch with, laughed with, complained with. A woman who trusted this man enough to build a life with him. "I don't know yet," I answered honestly. "But I will be speaking to him." Her eyes widened. "Mama, please don't." I held up my hand. "Camille, this man crossed a line. And if I let him walk away from this without consequences, he'll do it again. To somebody else's daughter." Her chin trembled. She nodded, defeated. I got up, grabbed my keys, and kissed the top of her head. "I'll be back. Stay home." Her voice cracked when she said, "Please be careful, Mama." "I will," I whispered. But the truth was, I didn't know what I was about to walk into. I chose to confront him on neutral ground, a public cafe on the quiet side of downtown. I texted him from a number he didn't have saved. "We need to talk. Come to Green Oak Cafe at 10 a.m. alone." He responded instantly. "Who is this?" I typed back, "Camille's mother." There was no reply after that. But I knew he would come. Men like him always came when their image was at stake. I got to the cafe early. The place smelled like roasted coffee beans and cinnamon. The morning sunlight streamed through the large windows, falling on couples having breakfast, on two old men playing checkers, on a group of college girls laughing loudly about something on their phones. Life was moving as usual, but inside me, everything was trembling. At exactly 10:02, he walked in, wearing a crisp gray shirt, an expensive watch, and that same confident stride I remembered from the grocery store. But today, something in his eyes was nervous. He spotted me and froze mid-step. I gestured to the seat opposite me. He walked over slowly. When he sat, he cleared his throat, trying to maintain control of the situation. "Mrs. Addison, I didn't give you permission to say my name," I cut sharply. He stiffened. "Good." For the first time, he felt small. "I'm sure you know why we're here," I continued. He swallowed, adjusting his watch. "Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Is that what you tell all the children you pursue? That it's a misunderstanding?" He flinched.
"Good."
For the first time, he felt small. "I'm sure you know why we're here," I continued. He swallowed, adjusting his watch. "Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Is that what you tell all the children you pursue? That it's a misunderstanding?" He flinched. "You knew she was 16, I said quietly. "You knew and you didn't stop." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I never touched her. I didn't say you did.
He froze again.
My eyes narrowed. But you saying it tells me you thought about it.
His jaw locked.
I didn't. Don't lie to me, Marcus. I snapped, the first sharpness in my voice since I walked in. Don't you dare sit in front of a mother and pretend you weren't grooming my child. He looked around quickly, embarrassed. You need to keep your voice down, he whispered harshly.
Why?
Afraid someone might overhear that you've been courting teenage girls behind your wife's back. His lips parted at the word wife. He leaned back, exhaling through his nose, a man exposed. What do you want? He finally asked. I want you to stay away from my daughter, I said, my voice steady. I want you to delete her number. Block her everywhere. And if you so much as breathe in her direction again, I will make sure your wife, your family, and every person you work with knows exactly who you are. He swallowed hard. Is that a threat? No, I said calmly. That's a promise. His mask cracked, then pride fading, replaced by fear. He nodded stiffly. I'll leave her alone. You will, I said, because you know I'm not bluffing. When I stood up, I looked him dead in the eye and said quietly, You chose the wrong mother. Then I walked out of the cafe with my head high but my heart pounding in my chest. Driving home, my hands shook the entire time. Protecting your child feels righteous, but it doesn't feel clean. It feels heavy, like carrying a weight that nobody else can help you lift. When I pulled into my driveway, Camille was sitting on the front steps, hugging her knees. She ran to me before I even got out of the car. Mama, did he threaten you? I took her face gently in my hands. No, baby. He's done. It's over. She buried her face in my shoulder and sobbed, her whole body shaking. And as I held her, I realized something. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of the consequences. For all of us. I thought confronting Marcus would ease something inside me. But the following week, a strange quiet settled over the house. The kind of quiet that doesn't comfort. It presses on your chest, makes you aware of every fragile thing you're trying to hold together. Camille stayed home from school for 2 days. She said she had a sore throat, but I knew the real sickness wasn't in her body. It was in her spirit. Every time her phone buzzed, she jumped. Even though we both knew the number she hoped to see would never appear again. By the 3rd day, I forced myself to do something normal, grocery shopping. It felt like stepping back into the world after being underwater too long. The fluorescent lights were too bright. The simple chatter of strangers felt too loud. But I needed normal, even if normal felt temporary. As I turned into the produce aisle, I heard someone call my name. Addison? Is that you? My stomach tightened. It was her. Janice. Marcus's wife. My former colleague. She pushed her cart toward me with that same warm smile she used to bring into the office every morning. Her braids were pulled back into a sleek ponytail, and she wore a soft pink sweater with a tiny stain near the cuff, probably from one of her kids. I forced a smile. Janice, wow. It's been a while. It really has, she said, giving me a quick hug. Girl, you disappeared on me after you left the firm. Life did that sometimes. It separated you from people before you ever knew how much you'd need them again. We talked for a few minutes, surface-level catch-up, but something about her energy felt off. Her laughter was a little too quick, her eyes a little too glassy. Then she said quietly, You haven't spoken to Marcus lately, have you? My heart thudded against my ribs. No, I said softly. Why? She sighed, pushing a loose braid behind her ear. He's been different. Withdrawn. Always on his phone. Taking late-night calls in the bathroom. A cold wave passed through me. I could feel it, the shift. The slow unraveling. She looked at me with the eyes of a woman begging someone to tell her she's not imagining things. You ever get the feeling somebody in your own house is writing chapters without you in them? Her voice cracked. I swallowed hard. Janice. I'm sorry, she said quickly, brushing under her eye. That just came out of nowhere. I guess I needed to say it out loud. I touched her arm gently. You don't owe me an apology. She nodded, clearing her throat. Anyway, it was good seeing you. Take care of yourself, Addison. She walked away with a tight smile, but I could see it clearly now. She already knew something was wrong, and sooner or later, she would follow the breadcrumbs to the truth. That night, I found Camille sitting on her bed, scrolling through photos, old selfies of her and Marcus at the mall, pictures of him smirking into the camera like a man who had everything under control. When she noticed me in the doorway, she locked her phone quickly. I told him never to contact you again, I said gently. She nodded without looking up. But baby, deleting him from your phone is only the first step. You have to delete him from your mind too. That's the part that hurts the most. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Mama, does she know? I hesitated. Not yet. But she will, right? I sat beside her. People always know when their house is on fire, even before they see the flames. She leaned against me, and for a moment, we just breathed together. Two hearts dealing with different versions of the same storm. 3 days later, the public consequence began. It happened in the most ordinary place, the school parking lot. I was sitting in my car, waiting for Camille to finish her after-school meeting, when I saw two people walking across the lot. Marcus and Janice. And they were arguing. Not loud enough for anyone but me to hear, but their bodies said enough. Janice's arms cut through the air as she spoke. Marcus stood stiff, defensive, like a man trying to control a situation that had already slipped out of his hands. Then, suddenly, she pulled out her phone, shaking it at him. He grabbed her wrist. That was all I needed to see. I opened my car door and started walking toward them. Janice saw me first. Her eyes widened, as if she had just stumbled upon a witness to a truth she didn't want to believe. Addison, she whispered. Marcus turned, and the moment his eyes met mine, his whole face changed. He looked cornered. I stopped a few feet away. Everything okay? I asked Janice, keeping my voice calm, controlled, respectful. She hesitated, then shook her head. No. Everything is not okay. Marcus stepped forward. This is a private conversation. I cut him a sharp look. Don't touch her again. He stiffened. Janice looked between us, her confusion deepening. You two know each other? Since when? There it was. The crack where truth would fall through. I opened my mouth to speak, slowly, carefully, but Camille's voice cut through the air behind me. Mama? I turned. She stood at the entrance of the school building, hugging her backpack tightly, her face draining of color as she saw who I was standing with. That was the moment everything collided. Janice looked at Camille, then at me, then at Marcus. And something in her expression shifted, a slow, painful realization. Marcus, she whispered, please tell me this isn't about what I think it is. He froze, and silence, heavy, suffocating silence, settled between the four of us. Camille took a shaky step back, tears already forming. No, she murmured to herself. Please don't make me relive this. Janice's breathing quickened. You said it was nothing. You swore. It was nothing, he said quickly. It's over. Janice shook her head violently. Over? Over? So something did happen. People were starting to look now. Parents waiting for their kids. Students walking to their buses. Teachers crossing the lot. And in the middle of all of them, a wife. A cheating husband. A heartbroken teenage girl. And a mother trying to hold the pieces together. Janice looked at me with trembling lips. Addison, please tell me the truth. I inhaled slowly, every word heavy with responsibility. I confronted him. I made sure it ended. But Janice, you deserve to know. She stared at me for a long second, then broke. Right there in the parking lot, she sank against a car door and sobbed. The kind of sob that shakes the entire body. Parents turned away. Students whispered. The air filled with the sting of humiliation and heartbreak. Marcus reached for her. She jerked away as if his touch burned. Then she stood up, wiped her face, and said in a voice broken but powerful, "We are done." And she walked away. Without looking back. Marcus didn't chase her. He just stood there, hands trembling, watching the life he built crumble in front of the whole community. And for the first time since this started, he truly looked small. Camille grabbed my hand, squeezing it as tears streamed down her cheeks. Mama, I didn't want it to be like this. I know, baby, I whispered, but the truth always shows itself, one way or another. As we walked back to the car, I could still hear Janice's sobs echoing behind us. A family had cracked open, and none of us would walk away untouched. The week after the parking lot confrontation felt like the longest week of my life. Everything was quieter, not peaceful, just muted, like the world had lowered its volume so we could sit with the consequences of what happened. Camille barely left her room, not out of fear, but out of grief. Grief for a man who didn't deserve her tears, but heartbreak doesn't follow logic. It follows passion. It follows the places where a young woman first believed she was being seen, chosen, cherished. I didn't rush her healing. I didn't lecture. I didn't tell her she should have known better. I simply stayed present. Sometimes healing requires silence. Sometimes it needs a soft knock on the door and a plate of warm chicken soup placed gently on a nightstand. Sometimes it's a mother sitting outside her daughter's room at midnight, listening for soft sobs that she wishes she could take on herself. One quiet Thursday evening, she finally came out.
Not to talk.
Not to explain anything. Just to sit. She slid onto the couch beside me, curling her legs under a blanket, her head resting lightly on my shoulder. We watched a rerun of some old family sitcom, both pretending the laughter in the scene was lifting something inside us. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. After a while, she whispered, "Mama, do you think I'm stupid?" I felt her voice tremble through my sleeve. "No, baby," I said, stroking her hair. "I think you're human. Humans fall for the wrong people every day. What matters is what you do after you learn the truth." She nodded slowly, her breathing deepening like she was finally letting go of some weight. "I feel so embarrassed," she said. "Like everyone can see through me now." "They can't," I murmured. "And even if they could, shame only lasts when you hold on to it. What happened doesn't define you. It teaches you." She exhaled shakily. I kissed the top of her head. "And you're learning, sweetheart. I can see it." 2 days later, my phone buzzed while I was wiping down the kitchen counter. Janice. My heart squeezed at the sight of her name. I answered softly. "Hello." There was a short pause, the kind where someone is trying to steady their voice. "Addison, thank you." Those 2 words carried exhaustion, sadness, and reluctant gratitude. "You didn't have to say that," I replied. "No," she said, "but I needed to. You told me the truth even though it hurt. And most women wouldn't have done that." I sat down at the table, running my finger along the edge of the placemat. "How are you holding up?" I asked. "I'm breathing," she said. "The kids are confused. My mother's angry. His family is quiet. But me? I'm choosing to take this 1 hour at a time." I closed my eyes, nodding even though she couldn't see me. "That's all you can do?" I said. Another pause. "I'm sorry your daughter got wrapped up in his foolishness," she said quietly. I swallowed hard. "She's healing." "Good," she replied, "because she deserves healing. All young girls do." Her voice cracked a bit, but she steadied herself. "Anyway, I won't take your time. Just wanted you to know I see you. And I appreciate your honesty." When the call ended, I stared at the phone for a long moment. I hadn't expected a thank you. Sometimes the world surprises you with small kindnesses in the middle of big pain. That weekend, Camille came downstairs dressed for the first time in days. Real clothes, not oversized sweats or pajamas. She wore a soft lavender top and a pair of jeans she loved before everything happened. Her curls were pulled into a neat bun. Her lips glowed faintly with lip gloss. She looked like herself again. "I want to go get some fresh air," she said. I nodded, trying not to look too relieved. "I can drive you." "No," she said gently. "I want to walk. There's a cafe down the street. I'll be okay." I smiled. "All right, baby. Be safe." As she stepped out the door, sunlight hit her face, and I watched her lift her chin just a little, like someone rediscovering her own glow. Healing rarely arrives loudly. It arrives in small steps. A walk, a shower, a meal finished, a deep breath that doesn't hurt as much. Later that afternoon, as I was folding laundry in the living room, my phone dinged. It was Camille. A single line. "Mama, I'm okay." I sat down on the edge of the sofa, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over me. Not because the pain was gone, but because we were moving through it, together. A week later, we went to therapy, mother and daughter sessions. Nothing dramatic, nothing earth-shattering. Just honest conversations. Camille spoke about loneliness, about wanting someone older to validate her, about ignoring the warning signs. I spoke about fear, about the responsibility of being a mother, about how helpless I felt watching her hurt. Our therapist listened, nodded, guided. Step by step, the emotional fog lifted. One day, on the ride home, Camille turned to me and said, "I'm learning to forgive myself." I smiled. "That's the hardest part." She wiped a tear. "But I'm trying." And that alone made me proud. Marcus? I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he moved out of the house after Janice filed for separation. He started staying with a cousin across town. His reputation in the community took a hit, not because of revenge, not because of public shaming, but because consequences have a way of finding their rightful place. I didn't wish him ruin. I only wished he'd face the truth sooner. Sometimes men destroy their own homes and look surprised when the roof collapses. But that was no longer my story to carry. One quiet Sunday evening, while dinner simmered on the stove, Camille came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "I love you, Mama." I placed my hand over hers, feeling the warmth. "I love you too, baby." She leaned her cheek against my back. "Thank you for protecting me, even from the truth I didn't want to see." I turned and pulled her into a full embrace. "Thank you," I whispered, "for letting me be your mother." We stayed there, holding onto each other, letting the kitchen fill with the scent of thyme and roasted chicken. And in that soft, sacred moment, I realized we were healing. Not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. And sometimes that's enough. You know, when I look back on everything that happened, the lies, the heartbreak, the truth that shook both my house and another woman's home, I realized something I wish more mothers understood. We cannot always stop our children from walking toward fire, but we can be there to pull them out before it burns them beyond recognition. My daughter fell for a man who was old enough to know better and married enough to know the cost. She believed his attention meant she was special. But sometimes attention is not admiration, it's manipulation dressed like affection. And as a mother, I had to make decisions that hurt, decisions that shook friendships, decisions that forced truth into places where secrets had been growing like weeds. But in the end, my daughter healed. The truth stood tall. And a woman who deserved honesty finally received it, even if it broke her heart first. This story wasn't about revenge. It was about protection. It was about accountability. It was about the courage it takes to face the things you want to pretend you didn't see. And if you're listening to me right now, maybe you've had to protect someone too. Maybe you've had to walk into a storm for the sake of someone you love. Maybe you've had to speak a truth that tasted like bitterness on your tongue. Just remember this. Doing the right thing won't always feel good, but it will always feel clean. Protect your children. Believe your intuition. And don't ever let guilt silence the truth. Now, let me ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you have confronted that man, or kept the secret to protect the other woman from pain? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know. And if this story touched you in any way, make sure you subscribe to Voice of Mrs. Addison, turn on your notifications, share this story with someone who needs strength today. Because here, we tell stories that heal, stories that teach, and stories that remind us a woman's voice is powerful, especially when it's honest. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay safe, stay wise, and stay blessed.